determine whether this statement is true or false. We have the second derivative is equal to the first derivative squared. Well, this statement is false. And then we're going to prove why. Okay, so again, this represents the second derivative. And this is taking the first derivative, or f prime of x, and then squaring it. Okay, so let's take a look at an example here. Let's say if we had the following function. Let's say y or f of x is equal to x. So now let's find the derivative using the derivative definition. So f of x would then equal the limit as h approaches 0 of f of x plus h minus f of x, and then divide that by h. So if we did this, we would have the limit as h approaches 0 of x plus h minus x over h. So therefore, we would have the limit as h approaches 0 of x plus h minus x over h. And we would see that those values of the x would give you 0. So x minus x is 0, and we have h over h. Well, that means that h over h is equal to 1. So therefore, we would say that the derivative, or the first derivative, is 1. So that tells us that the first derivative is 1. Okay, now let's find the second derivative. So if we find the second derivative, we know that the limit as h approaches 0 of the first derivative minus the first derivative, so the first derivative of x plus h minus the first derivative of x divided by h. So we would have the limit as h approaches 0, we would have 1 minus 1 over h. And so we would get the limit as h approaches 0 of 0 over h, which is equal to the limit as h approaches 0 of 0, which is equal to 0. So that means that the second derivative of this function is going to equal 0. Okay, so let's take a look at the definition now. So again, the statement wanted to know the following. Remember that this represents the derivative, the second derivative squared, and we want to say that this equals. So this represents the first derivative. So the second derivative we got was 0. We want to see if it's equal to the first derivative, which is 1 squared. So 0 does not equal 1. Therefore, the answer is false.